record, including the testimony received at tonight's public hearing. The proceedings will be recorded. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with Coos Bay Development Code and State Law ORS 197.797. Specifically, we'll have the staff report and recommendation. The applicant will then have the opportunity to present the proposal and address any issues raised by the staff report. For public testimony, I'll first ask to hear from the people who would like to speak in favor, and then I'll ask for opposition. City staff may then present additional material and recommendations based on the public testimony, and then the applicant will be given the opportunity to have the last word. Anyone wishing to speak will ask that you sign up on the sign-up sheet that's been provided, and then when you come up to speak, just state your name and address for the public record. Before we hear the staff report, is there any conflict of interest ex parte contact on the Planning Commission?
Nope. I would say no. I am a next door neighbor to their existing business, but that wouldn't change how I would decide on anything.
Okay. Anybody want to, I guess, contest his ex parte contact? Hearing none, we're ready for the staff report.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Jim Hossley, Public Works and Community Development Director, and I will start reading the report that's in your packet. The subject is the applicant is proposing, and that the applicant is Joshua R. Mast. He's proposing the use of storage, non-operating vehicles, storage of non-operating motor vehicles. Typical uses include storage of private parking, tow-away, or impound yards, which are permitted in the industrial commercial zone. The site will be fenced and no structures are proposed at this time. The property is in the industrial commercial zoning district and is in the floodplain. The background and summary: the property is, like I said, in the industrial commercial zone. The proposed use is storage, non-operating vehicles, and storage of non-operating motor vehicles, including storage of private parking, tow-away, or impound yards, is listed as a permitted use in the industrial commercial zone. The applicant's submittal indicates that the subject property will be used as an overflow lot for abandoned recreational vehicles. The applicant indicated that their contract with the City of Coos Bay and the county specifies that towing will occur Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. In an emergency, which the applicant indicates rarely occurs, where delivery is deemed necessary outside of the standard hours, compliance with the city noise ordinance will be observed. The applicant indicated that all tow trucks are equipped with switches to turn off the backup alarms, and that vehicles submit to towing have typically been stored in the right-of-way for some time, so leaking of any fluids would have occurred prior to towing, and that any vehicles with visible leaking would be provided with drip pans while on site. The proposed project does not include any public services. The applicant proposes an 8-foot-high chain-link fence with site-obstructing slats, and barbed wire is prohibited. Landscaping will be required. A gate is proposed on the South 7th Street access and the Cruz Avenue access. The applicant proposes to install 2 curb cuts and paved aprons and develop the remaining property with gravel. The property is in the floodplain, but according to the National Wetland Inventory map, no wetlands are noted. On September 15th of this year, the city received letters of concern and a signed petition outlining concerns, including reduction of property values, roadway used by emergency vehicles, fill raising water levels due to storm drainage water, wetlands, leaching of chemicals from disabled vehicles into the floodplain, increased volume of homeless and garbage, which also brings an increase in theft in the area, and violation of noise ordinance due to backup alarms on tow vehicles. And that information is attached to your report. So the recommendations and suggested motions. Based on the adopted findings and conclusions, approve the proposed storage non-operating vehicles, storage of non-operating motor vehicles, subject to the following conditions of approval. Continue compliance with regulations outlined in the service contract with the City of Coos Bay is required. Continued compliance with noise ordinance and unreasonable noise. 3, if at any time a change is proposed to the approved provisions of the site, submittal of a modification of permit application will be required for review and approval for compliance. 4, barbed wire is prohibited. 5, submittal of a floodplain development application is required to verify compliance with city code regarding flood damage prevention, including but not limited to an engineering evaluation to determine the impact of fill on the floodwater elevation, and a no-rise certificate completed by an engineer that is registered in Oregon must be submitted, and venting of the slatted fence to equalize hydrostatic pressures. The equation is 1 square inch per 1 square foot of area. A detailed landscape plan must be submitted for review for compliance with the city code and the industrial commercial development standards. Any proposed work in the public right-of-way must be reviewed through the Public Works Development Permit. 8, issuance of a Public Works Site Development Permit is required to verify compliance with a city code. 9, the applicant is responsible for ensuring all applicable resource agency permits are approved. That is, resource agencies would be, for example, the DEQ, the Army Corps of Engineers, etc. 10, maintenance and irrigation. Maintenance of landscaped area is the ongoing responsibility of the property owner. Required landscaping must be continuously maintained in a healthy manner, and plants that die must be replaced with in-kind materials unless otherwise authorized by the review authority. Vegetation shall be controlled by pruning, trimming, etc. So that concludes the staff report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jim. Any questions? Hearing none. We'll now hear from the primary applicant or the representative, and then you just have to state your name and address.
Josh Mast, 2980 Greenbrier, Reedsport, Oregon. What would you like to know?
I actually don't have any questions. Do you guys have any questions for the applicant?
Well, I got one big question, Josh.
Okay.
How are you gonna protect that thing without barbed wire? And it's tough enough
Yeah.
across the street there on Hall Street.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a good place
So
for it, but
Go ahead.
how are you gonna protect it?
Well, if they're going to allow an 8-foot fence, which is taller than what we've currently got because the existing one has barbed wire on it. The stuff that's going to be put down there, like I said, it's not going to be critical stuff. It's going to be the abandoned trailers, the abandoned RVs, the boats, stuff that people have left and have not touched, and there's really not a high security concern with it. So kind of no different than them sitting on the street. So as far as that kind of security, I mean, anybody's going to get into anything they want if they really want to, but I think with the type of vehicles that we plan on putting there, and it's only just to meet the time limit as required before we can move them to either Beaver Hill or a different site. As you guys are all aware, you guys generate a lot of RVs and a lot of motorhomes and stuff, and what we're currently having to do is we'll bring them to the main facility, and then within days, weeks, it fills up, and we have to shuttle them up north to dispose of them. Where we do have in place already with Coos Bay and with the county, they can either go to Beaver Hill, but at that point, we've already invested the time to move them north, to turn around and then bring them back this way. It's just kind of it just kind of streamlines it. And the thing with the motor homes, those are the ones that are most likely to leak if they were to leak, but those we've already decided for simplicity, once those are hooked up, we'll just move them straight north, because once they're hooked up, they're already hooked up and they got to go that way anyways. So primarily the stuff that would be there would be travel trailers and, boats and, things of that kind of nature.
So this would be a temporary place for them?
It's just an overflow from the main one to
Okay.
hold it for that 30 days that's required by law before
Okay.
we can technically dispose of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I have a question. According to the neighborhood, they're terribly worried about the homeless. And I guess, I don't know what the concern is, because I can't imagine anything. To me, it's a good place for most motor homes, but do you guys kind of maintain some kind of check to see if people have moved into these things, or if they're,
Well, with
if
the,
it's become kind of a community there? I mean, if
Yeah.
if you can crawl over an 8-foot fence,
Mm-hmm.
you could probably break into one of these and just be cozy as can be.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound appealing to me, but,
Sure.
I'm just wondering, I'm trying to imagine, I mean, I'm glad to get these things out of the back streets and around and everywhere. Get them somewhere and get rid of them, because
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
they're trash.
yeah,
But, I don't know how we can do that when people are so concerned about that kind of minutia. So I guess that would be a way to assure people that it's not some kind of attractive place for people to be.
I guess you could say any place that's vacant and empty right now is an attractive place.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just prominent everywhere.
Yeah.
What
We've
would
already-
be what would be the normal turnaround?
As far as stuff being there,
Yeah, you brought something there, when would you?
30 days or less, depending on the value of the vehicle.
So
We've
that
already-
probably would take care of it if they're
Well, I mean,
moving
I
stuff out.
don't
in the
know,
middle.
I'm
Yeah.
just trying to imagine. I
And-
mean, I think that, I guess the concern I kind of have is we have property that's zoned industrial commercial. And then people look for a place to do a business that has to be industrial commercial. And then they want to go and do it. And then they're faced with issues because that's not what people want. So I guess I'm kind of saying if you live next to property that's industrial and commercial, you might want to spend your time lobbying to get that changed to something else, because that's the only place we have to do this stuff.
And it's pretty few and far between in industrial commercial that we have
And
available.
it's hard to find.
It is very
It
hard
is.
to
And
find.
we know that, and, and the thing is, and we know that, and the thing is, we understand that if you do find it, and you need to have it, these are necessary things for our,
Yeah.
community, and so this stuff's got to go somewhere before it could go somewhere else.
Yeah, and so to finish answer your question, we've already discussed with one of the guys, the primary guys that comes down here during the week. He comes from Reedsport. So he leaves town about 7, he gets down here about 7:30. And because of what's being stored there, it's not gonna be highly critical stuff, and brand new cars. We've already discussed amongst ourselves, he or one of the lead drivers that are there during the week, every morning, they would come down, they'd walk the fence, they'd go inside, just kind of check it, because to put, either electric fence or, I know barbed wire is not allowed, but, to add security cameras and do a bunch of stuff to protect something that's not worth protecting, it's just not cost effective. But that's our plan to do that is just-
Daily?
Huh?
You said daily they'd be checking?
Yeah, so
Oh,
every
perfect.
morning when they'd come down, they'd just come down, they'd walk the fence, make sure nothing's cut.
Okay.
Because that's typically
Yeah.
what they try to do.
Maybe, security cameras are not very expensive, I don't think.
No,
That
but you
might
gotta,
not be the
but you
worst
gotta have
idea.
power.
Oh, and you're not bringing in any?
No, I don't plan on pulling any utilities
So
in.
there's no lighting in there?
No. No, the only way we could do that, we'd have to put like a solar station in within,
Sure,
again, it's, we're trying to solve a problem
sure.
for something that's clearly zoned for it. And, we're just trying to eliminate a bottleneck to where we can keep this stuff moving and get it off the roads and get rid of it.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope, I don't think so. Oh, perfect, thank you.
And
forgot to look up there.
Hopefully you can see it. I thought I made it to where you can pop up on the screen now, but. So Josh would like to know if a wetland delineation report was needed or done by the Army Corps of Engineers. His other question is there a sidewalk plan for that section of South 7 due to the high foot traffic?
Okay, so first question is about the wetland delineation.
Yes.
So as indicated on the state wetland maps, that is not a dedicated wetland.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
therefore, no wetland delineation. As far as the sidewalks, that wasn't one of the requirements that we were asked to do. We were asked to do landscaping in that area, and the fence would be set back, according so.
All right.
So, yeah, I mean, because it doesn't really,
Are there currently sidewalks on
No.
South 7th?
No,
I don't
there's
think there
not.
are. Okay.
And I apologize, this is Josh here, by the way. The sidewalk question was more just kind of in general while we're talking about that area. It's a little off topic, but
Oh.
I don't think there's sidewalks on either side of that street. And I was just thinking if we had a plan in mind before he goes to the trouble of erecting a fence and doing all this, if a year from now, there's a plan to put a sidewalk in down that side or the other, it'd be good to let you know up front before you
yeah,
went
we're
deep into fencing there. So it was
Coincided
just more
with
of a question like that. I'm supportive of this project here. These things need to go somewhere, and I thank you for cleaning them up all over town.
Sure. Okay,
Perfect. Thank you.
is that it?
Yep.
Uh,
Oh,
The
sorry,
landscaping, was there any kind of requirement on the landscaping? I mean, is grass going to be considered landscaping, or?
So I know the city does require certain landscaping per square foot of, the developed area. I did bring in a design there that the architect put together.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, but the back end of the lot, I'm gonna call it, I guess it's the north end. If you guys wanna take a look at that, there's already existing vegetation on the back side of the lot, and it's about 20 to 25 feet deep, and we planned on leaving that. And then the outside would be landscaped and presented similar to the one that's just across the street, to where it kind of. And it was designed with the idea in mind, it's low maintenance, it's, stuff that survives with just the rainwaters. It's not gonna take an irrigation system or anything, but then we didn't wanna put anything in there that would create big tall bushes that screen the fence, so you're kinda juggling it to where, so it's low-lying grasses and shrubbery.
Any further questions? No?
No.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Any other additional comments in support? Hearing none. Any opposed? Just state your name and address.
Diane Hanna, 1041 South 7th Street. I've been a resident there for over 30 years. I'm aware of the property that is in question. It used to be a low-lying area, about 4 to 5 feet deep, full of foliage. Betancourt bought the property and filled it in. I bought my property before that was done, and we may have had a small amount of water standing in our yards then. But when they filled that property in, we now have over 3 feet of water in our yards. Now, the storm drain water system is connected to this whole area that's in question. The water coming from Marshfield High School, 10th Street, and 5th Street all connect to 2 tide gates at the end of 5th Street to the slough. That water backs up during the wintertime. And we get 300 plus gallons an hour into our yards there between 7th and 8th Street. Fred Dirth used to live at the end of 7th Street, the last house on 7th Street. And he could launch his boat during this period in time. We tried, him and I, tried to block the water from coming in. Maybe come up somewhere else. Give us some relief. The city decided that they needed to put a concrete box around it with a grate on top to keep us from doing that for in the future. They put a little tide gate thing in there. So water comes off the hill down and into that box and comes back up through that box and lays into our yards and stuff until the tide goes out. When the tide goes out, then all the water drains out to those tide gates and goes out to the slough. Now, the tide gates are blocked from debris of such, from the flow from our ditches, our ditch that used to be in between our properties on 8th and 7th Street. It was maintained, it was abandoned, so they haven't cleaned it and kept it at the depth that it was originally designed to do. It was supposed to direct storm drain water to it and hold it and then drain back out with the tide. At this time, the city has not maintained it and they have not kept it clean. There is a sewer line in the bottom of this ditch. They have now let the Army Corps of Engineers deem that a natural wetland. So now they cannot even touch it with a machine or anything to clean that ditch. So we are left with no resource of relief at this time. Filling in that particular property, which it's not at this time. They will have to make it solid enough to hold vehicles into it. At this time, it is still a lower part, and most of the water does saturate that area the most. So they will have to compact that area to make it more solid to hold. I've had many years of mud bogs and rescues in that lot. So when it's wintertime, mud trucks come in there and they mud bog in it and stuff and break and have to be drug out. So it's quite rutted, and it has a lot of moisture still in it at this time. Even though we haven't had any rain, there's water in that property. It's a natural low area, and water naturally goes to it. So when they finish filling that in up to the standards that they're going to need to keep from being stuck when they go in there, and to hold these vehicles for long periods of time, that they're saying for 30 days. During the wintertime months, this is going to be a hard thing to do. I see that our area, our neighborhood, will receive quite a bit more water due to the fact that that low-lying area will not be receiving any of the water that will be coming off the street and out of that storm drain thing that puts the water into our yards. We can't hold fences in our yards. If you guys would just, from what I can gather from your guys' comments, you guys don't spend a lot of time going up and down 7th Street, so you're unaware of the area. And I would highly suggest that you take a look and see how many homes are there. Yes, it should not have never been industrial commercial. Commercial, yes, industrial, no. Due to the fact that the city is unwilling to fix the water situation, which is a city situation. It is storm drain water off the streets. So we get contaminated water to our backyards. It's very hard to put fences up due to the fact of the tidal surge in and out all the time. So unless you engineer or construct an actual wall across there, fences don't hold out. I've got one up, it's been up for about 5 years. I'm gonna have to probably repair it next year. They can only hang out for about 5 years, 5 to 10 at the most. And we do the best we can with our area, and we have been trying, and I know I have for 30 years, in that area been trying to go along and get along with the city and their storm drain contaminated water that's too contaminated to put back into the system because it would cost too much money to clean it. But it's okay to filter it through our private properties and then back out to the slough. So I'm not against business. I am not against people having a right to have a business in the area. I just want some relief as a homeowner and not to keep having to reap the rewards of business without any compensation to us as homeowners. I am representing the neighborhood. I have all their signatures and such. I have been trying diligently, and Jim Hosel can confess to this. I have been trying to work with the city to come up with a solution. I believe that that particular property would make a fabulous relief area for our neighborhood. That if it was dug back out to where it was originally at, made it to a natural wetland park, put in concrete picnic tables in there, because people come there all the time to walk their dogs. It's a great dog park area, and it would make sense to the neighborhood. It would relieve the neighborhood of the water that they're being inundated with, contaminated water. Our children are playing in this, you know, and right now with the natural wetland thing going on between our properties, we have now stagnant water, standing water, and high mosquito volume that has increased in the last 2 to 3 years. So we're just, you know, as residents, we all agree business is good, but we all pay taxes on our properties, and we just want to live in happiness and in common courtesy with each other. I wouldn't suggest buying a home there due to the fact that I've been there for 30 years and I can't afford to move. So, and I put all my money into my house. I bought the city of Coos Bay and I got my house fixed. They condemned my home. I fixed my home. I put in a foundation in it, oversized it because of the water situation. So I'm doing my best to get along. But if I'm going to be inundated with even more water, I need some kind of resolution in that. I need some kind of help. Something needs to be done. If business wants to continue being built there, we need some kind of water relief. Just for our homes. We've got water coming up to our foundations. And now with this, it'll put it under our foundations. It'll undermine our homes. And with it being a holding yard, junkyard, it's going to depreciate our property values. There is sidewalks in that on 7th Street, but they only go halfway. I'm the original last house on that street. My house was built in 1918. That area used to be a log pond. And then the realtors came in and they bought it all up and filled it all in and made railroad lots out of it. So there's all kinds of debris and stuff in that ground and stuff. So when you dig down, you can find filled debris. I dig it up daily when I dig a hole. So the water levels never go completely down. You can dig down to about 2 feet tops before you hit gray sludge. And then that's the water level. So the area is a bowl area, so noises amplify as well as the water issue. And we are the catch-all from Marshfield High School, 10th Street, 5th Street, 2 tide gates. We are a low-lying area, and we catch all the water. So, and we're right there at the slope. And the only thing that the city could come up with was $1 million pump station, which would only circulate the water. from our flood area into the slough as the tide's in. So it wouldn't do us any good. We need somewhere the water can hang, not in our yards, in our properties. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have any rebuttal, maybe to the water issue? I mean, you guys have to develop as per FEMA, so I'm assuming there's, sorry.
So as far as about the water issue,
Well, I just know developing in a floodplain in general, don't you have to have like a geotech?
there has been geotech surveys done on it.
Okay,
There's been compaction tests done on it. That was prior when Betancourt owned it. When Betancourt owned it, yes, the compaction test would not, well, let me rephrase that. What they wanted to build there would not, I mean, it would have taken so much money to develop what the structure they wanted to put in there, because they wanted to put a truck shop in, concrete pad, you know, big, heavy-duty stuff. Greatly different than parking RVs and stuff on it, trailers. They're fairly lightweight, you know, 3,000, 4,000 pounds, spread out over 4 or 5 tires. You know, it's not a whole bunch of concentrated weight in one area. It sounds like the drainage issue has been present way before this was proposed. You know, I feel for her, but that's not, I don't feel like that's my doing. I don't think whether it's got a gravel overlay on it right now and another gravel overlay goes on top of it and it raises it 6 inches or 8 inches, that should not change or affect the way the drainage is currently. I mean, if it's already draining through the ground and off to the sides, I'm not sure how the drainage works down there, but that shouldn't really have anything to do with it. But you know, as far as the flood certificate that we have to do, and you know, there's standards that we have to follow, and that's what we would do. But I really don't have an answer for the drainage issues that are currently there.
Would Mr. Osley perhaps be able to?
yeah.
I think, Jim, we need to ask you what the city's plans are for the area. All I was gonna say one point is in terms of the commercial, and call it commercial instead of industrial, any commercial use would require even more fill because you'd have to bring the buildings up well above the 100-year floodplain. As you can see, bank buildings and stuff around town are being done. So if you were going to do commercial development there, it would exacerbate this issue drastically. But anyway, Jim, could you tell us what's going on?
Should I close the public hearing before we ask staff? Yeah, thank you so much. Yep, you're all set.
If there's nobody else.
Yeah, I'm gonna close the public hearing and then we can deliberate amongst staff.
So I think Ms. Hannah was accurate in her description of what's going on in the history of that and the problem itself. As she said, her property and her neighbor's property is some of the lowest, well, definitely in that part of the city, if not the entire city. And it's all in the FEMA floodplain. And it hasn't experienced much flooding from a big 100-year flood. It floods every year because of the water shutting off the hill. And as she says, it can't get out when the tide's high. Whether this piece of property in question would provide relief, according to our engineer, it might, but it wouldn't provide much relief. And it would only provide relief from storm events, not major flood events. Because in a major flood event, the water's coming over the levee, which isn't at the 100-year mark. It's lower than the 100-year mark, so water would flow over and it would flood the whole area, including this property in question. As far as the city, before my time, did an evaluation of what would be required to alleviate some of the flooding in the neighborhood. And like she said, it was pumps to pump the water over the levee. And I think the levy would probably may also need to be increased as well in height. But the levy is on private property, it's not city property. And the city at this time does not have any plans for any drainage improvements in that area.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Deliberation amongst the planning commission? Do you guys have any comments?
Well, you know, I think that I certainly understand this lady's frustration with, you know, living in this situation. And yes, indeed, it doesn't sound like there's any, the municipality isn't going to be able to fix it. I guess the question is almost, well, instead of a storage site for dead RVs, it would be better to dig a lake there and let this water go there. But I guess the thing is that probably the people that own the property don't want a lake there, and you know, we really have to kind of work with what we're given. And I think it'd be terribly frustrating to have the yard filling up and this, you know, but I'm not any kind of a hydrologist, good word though, you know, to know what this change is going to be. I guess what it does sound to me like it is something that's not a wrecking yard. It's not a garbage dump. It's stuff that's going to be taken in and hauled out, and it's less impactful than if they were going to put in a warehouse there that would have to be built up 4 or 5 feet in order to, and I am looking for a site for one of those, by the way. You know, that's kind of where I'm at with the thing. I don't like it, but I don't see a very good answer for it.
I guess when it comes to floodplain properties in general, development is super hard. And so to have such a low impact, you know, storage facility, I kind of see it as the highest and best use for that lot. Because it's not like you can build, I don't know that you could build on it. It's, you know, like she said, if it's super wet and it's already been filled once, I don't know that there's much else you can do with it. But, which I do, you know, floodplain properties, it's tough. Water diversion is really hard in our area, so I feel for you. It's just a very low-lying area.
Is the city going to buy me out?
I don't have any comment on that sort of thing.
Just a little history of that area, though. Betancourt paid dearly to fill that because it cost him a lot in mitigation somewhere else to be able to do that. So he was trying to create a better use for that. And as far as the water standing down there, you know, it's I mean, you go next door to Thomas and Sons lot there. It's the same thing. All the ditches are full of water on high tide. You go to Will Wright's. It's the same thing. So it's a big problem. And what they've ended up doing, forestry down there, when they built their building, they actually had to build it and leave holes in the foundation so the water will flow through. So it's been an ongoing problem for a long time. And I don't know that.
Especially that area.
Yeah. And there's two things that interest me with that property. One is what is proposed here is somewhat of a temporary thing, and I say temporary, it may be 20 years, it may be 30 years, but if somebody wanted to come in and build a Rite Aid or a Costco or something, that could always change. You're not locking it up in something, you put a building on it and that's permanent, it's kind of forever, you're talking 50 years then. So it doesn't really take it out of the usable property. And you know, we got to put those things somewhere, and that's probably as good as any. But the last thing, I had a little concern about the landscape. You know, it needs to be simple. I I keep saying that, it needs to be simple. The landscape's nice, but you put in Escalonia and you're gonna have to keep the weeds down. I see rock and nice trees. I would encourage you to use the street trees that the city uses, but make it simple. Rock and trees, and I go through once a year for the 2 lots next door, and I just boom spray the weeds, just because otherwise you're gonna have to go in there and weed eat them. You can't get a machine in there. So, clean and simple, that would be my only concern.
One quick question for the developer. Are you going to use every inch of this property for this project?
No, it's,
Are you going to use every bit of this piece?
No, because the fence is gonna be set in a little bit, I think it's 10 feet from the curbs.
yeah.
I'm calling it the north end, I guess the back end of it.
I'm going to ask a goofy question here,
Okay.
if those are permitted. Is there any way that any of that could be some kind of water retention space built into this? I'm talking some passive thing that would maybe take some of the pressure off this issue there?
Well,
It may be crazy, I just, throw it out there.
yeah, as the lot goes back, the elevation starts to change. And so we plan on just, we're gonna basically leave about 30 or 40 feet at the back of the lot, just to retain the original vegetation and keep that stuff there. But one of the reasons why we wanted to acquire that lot was because of the size. We didn't want to have to get a lot that wasn't going to facilitate it, and then have to find another one, and then have to find another one. So, and then how that would be incorporated into that, and then having the two entrances, the idea of the 2 entrances is the front gate would let you come in, the back gate would let you come out, and then the oldest stuff would be at the back gate, so it'd just be a flow, like a drive-through. I don't know where it would be feasible or functional to incorporate that in there.
Yeah, just a question,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So Josh, where's the lowest point in that piece of property?
I can't. It's probably up there towards the front corner, I think.
Front part, probably.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Yeah,
yeah. But I couldn't,
That's
Yeah.
the front,
yeah, well, if, just a thought, maybe a small detention pond. I mean, it's just gonna be a low spot, it's gonna fill up with willows, but if one were to take we're not supposed to design things, but.
Sure.
That would fit into your landscape. If it's an area you couldn't use.
Sure,
And
yeah.
it's gonna be soft and soggy, maybe a consideration of a small detention pond there. It's gonna fill up with water when the tide comes in, but it's no different than my yard. When the tide
Sure.
comes in, we got a lake in it, and we're a long ways away from here.
yeah, I'm open to suggestions, and if it doesn't put a financial burden on us to develop it, and it still accomplishes the landscaping part, I'm not opposed to
It
it.
might even help yours drain the rest of it,
Yeah.
Just a thought, obviously, we're all trying to be neighbors here, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
anything to take some pressure off
Yeah.
would be helpful.
Yeah, when I hear retention pond, I think of these
Yeah.
big, large,
No,
massive,
No.
but, they do have like those,
Well, we could put some fish in it.
yeah. I can't remember, I think they're called natural swales. You see them a lot.
Yeah.
Where they have the drainage ditches
lots of room
lined
for
with
those,
rocks,
right,
and then
yeah.
it's
Yeah, something about the size of a car.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So, not saying no, but I can't commit to it without
Yep,
Sure.
visiting with the other guys that know more about it than I do.
yeah. Well. Anything else?
Okay, that's it. Thank you. The public hearing's already been closed. Applicant gets last word. Did you guys have any further comments?
I don't.
Well, we have to take action on the matter.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the land application. Let me find the number now. Okay, yeah, project numbers, yeah, that's a land application. Okay, I would like to make a motion that we accept and allow them to proceed on project number 187-22-000251-PLNG.
Subject to the 10 conditions. There's 10 conditions, subject to the 10 conditions.
Yes, so subject to the 10 conditions. I guess we're just going to leave it alone with the detention pond. So yeah, okay, let's just stay with the 10 conditions that are written in the report.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. A final order in this case will be issued by staff within 21 days of the date of record that the record is closed. An appeal of this decision must be received by the city within 15 calendar days of the date of issuance of the final order. And authorization of this permit shall expire after 4 years from the date of decision if the use is not enacted. All right. Were there any public comments on the housing needs analysis? Hearing none. Any commissioner comments?
No.
Any staff comments?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Chelsea Schnabel. She's our new planning administrator for the city of Coos Bay. Carolyn is still working for the city part-time till November 4th, and she's more into private practice. And then maybe you've heard Debbie Erler has retired, and so we're looking to fill her position. Thank you.
I told her she had to replace herself.
Yeah, she has to train the next person.
Yeah. She had a personal.
Good evening, Commission. I'm Chelsea Schnabel. So nice to meet you, and sorry I wasn't able to be with you at the beginning of this meeting. I'm excited to be here and looking forward to working with you in the future. I know both Debbie and Caroline did wonders, and so hopefully I can fill those big shoes. Excuse me. History, if you don't know, I was at the city of North Bend working as their planner for the last approximately 7 years. So familiar with the community and glad to be continuing kind of tradition of land use planning here.
Well, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. All right, meeting adjourned.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for following through. Gosh, good for you.
Well, Debbie's awesome. I don't know what we're going to do.
I thought it was such a cool way to pick my cat up last Friday and she said, and she said, we haven't sent an email. I mean, I said, yeah.
I know we got 1 week notice. Because when Jim called, she...
Something must have come up. They could just all of a sudden go, boom, I'm retired.
34 years.
Yeah, I know, that's plenty of time.
Yeah.
Still, it's like,
Oh my gosh.
usually it's 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, timing for letting us know. I hope she has some travel plans.
You probably figures enough is enough.
Yep, enough is enough, something happened. But I hope she has some good travel plans or something.
It's a grant that hired
I envy her.
He's been involved in everything since I've been on the planning commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I asked about it because it was the water thing.
Yeah.
It's like, who are these people that I'm reading the report and going, oh, they're